The council chamber stood silent as Ambassador Paul Henderson walked through the massive doors. The room was huge, built to hold representatives from 47 different species. Some were tall, some were small, some breathed different air and sat in special sealed chambers. The humans had the simplest seats, just regular chairs near the back of the room. Paul had been the human ambassador for 12 years now. He knew every corner of this chamber, every face of every delegate. He knew which species liked humans and which ones barely noticed they existed. Most fell into the second group. He took his seat and opened his datapad. Today's agenda was long: trade disputes, border conflicts, resource allocation, and somewhere near the bottom, his proposal about safety equipment for workers in the hazardous zones. He had submitted that proposal 6 months ago. It kept getting pushed down the list. The Zentrini counselor, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, was speaking. His name was Vexther, and he had a voice that filled the entire chamber. He was talking about the upcoming centennial celebration, the big party that would mark 300 years of galactic peace. Everyone seemed excited about it. Paul looked at his datapad again. He scrolled through reports from human workers across the galaxy. Captain Jack Morrison had sent an update from the rescue fleet. They had saved a Quellan mining crew last week when their ship lost power near an asteroid field. Jack's team got there in 4 hours, faster than any other rescue service could manage. The Quellan government sent a brief thank you message. Nothing more. Dr. Kate Sullivan sent her weekly medical report from Station Kepler 7. She ran the main hospital there, treating patients from dozens of different species. Her success rate was the highest in the sector. The station master rarely spoke to her, just sent requests when he needed something. Kate never complained. She just did her job. Lieutenant Danny Wright checked in from the contested border between Vaxion and Quellan space. His peacekeeping unit had stopped 3 conflicts this month alone. Danny had a special talent for calming people down. He would walk into angry crowds without weapons, just talk to people, and somehow the fighting would stop. Other species found it strange. They couldn't understand how he did it. Paul closed the reports and looked up. The council was still discussing the celebration. They wanted it to be perfect, to show the whole galaxy how successful they were. Paul wondered if anyone would mention the humans who maintained the celebration venue, or the humans who would provide security, or the humans who would handle all the small problems that always came up during big events. Probably not. The Zentrini counselor finished his speech. The council voted to approve a huge budget for the celebration. Every species voted yes. Paul voted yes too, even though he knew human workers would do most of the actual work for a fraction of that budget. Finally, after 3 hours, the council reached Paul's proposal. He stood up and walked to the speaker's platform. He had practiced this speech many times. "Honored counselors," he began. "I want to talk about worker safety in hazardous zones. Last year, we lost 47 human workers in preventable accidents. Simple safety equipment could have saved them. Better shields, updated rescue systems, basic protective gear. The cost is minimal." He showed them the numbers. The equipment would cost less than 1% of the celebration budget. He showed them the statistics. Human workers had the highest casualty rate of any species because they took the most dangerous jobs. He showed them the solution. Simple, cheap, effective. The council listened politely. Then Counselor Vexler spoke. "Ambassador Henderson, we appreciate your concern. However, these workers accept the risks when they take these positions. We cannot spend council resources on every individual comfort request. Perhaps humans should consider whether they are suited for such dangerous work." Several counselors made sounds of agreement. Paul felt something cold settle in his chest. "With respect, Counselor, this is not about comfort. This is about preventing death. These workers maintain your stations, rescue your people, and protect your borders. They deserve basic safety measures." Vexler waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "They are well compensated for their service. If humans find the work unsuitable, other species can fill these roles." Paul looked around the chamber. A few counselors looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored or indifferent. The Quellan representative was reading something on his own datapad. The Vaxian counselor was whispering to an aide. "I request a vote on this proposal," Paul said quietly. The vote was quick. 42 species voted no. 3 voted yes. 2 abstained. Paul's proposal was rejected. He walked back to his seat. Nobody said anything to him. The council moved on to the next item, something about merchant shipping lanes. Paul sat down and opened his datapad again. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he opened a secure communication channel. He typed 2 words and sent the message to Earth, to every human colony, to every human station and ship in the galaxy. Protocol. Exodus. The message took different amounts of time to reach different places. Some got it in minutes. Some wouldn't receive it for days. But it went everywhere humans worked in council space. Paul closed his datapad. He listened to the rest of the meeting. He voted when required. He said nothing else. When the session ended, he gathered his things and left the chamber on Station Kepler 7. Dr. Kate Sullivan received the message during her night shift. She was treating a Relian patient with a respiratory problem. She looked at the message for a long moment, then put her datapad away and finished treating her patient. She did good work. She always did good work. But when her shift ended, she began making arrangements. She met with the other human doctors and nurses. There were 15 of them on the station. They gathered in the small break room and talked quietly. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody got angry. They just made plans. Kate called the station master and requested a meeting. When she got to his office, she brought a data chip. "I'm submitting my resignation," she said. "All human medical staff will be leaving in 2 weeks. This chip contains all patient records, treatment protocols, and system access codes. We'll spend the next 2 weeks training your staff on our procedures." The station master, a being called Quilnith with gray skin and large eyes, stared at her. "Leaving? Why? Did we do something wrong?" "No," Kate said simply. "We're just going home." "But you can't all leave. Who will run the hospital?" "You have staff from 6 other species. They're trained medical professionals. They can handle it. But your success rate. Your techniques. Dr. Sullivan, please reconsider." Kate shook her head. "The decision is made. We'll ensure a smooth transition. We won't leave you with any problems. But we are leaving." Quilnith tried to convince her to stay. He offered more money, better schedules, a bigger department. Kate listened politely and refused everything. She left the data chip and went back to work. On the contested border, Lieutenant Danny Wright got the message during a patrol. He read it twice, then looked at his team. There were 20 human peacekeepers in his unit. He gathered them together. "Pack your gear," he said. "We're going home." They had been stationed there for 3 years. They had stopped hundreds of fights, saved thousands of lives, and built relationships with the local communities. But they followed Danny's orders. They began to pack. Danny contacted the main peacekeeping command and informed them of the departure. The commander, a Torvin named Kresh, was shocked. "You can't leave now. The situation is still unstable. We need you here." "We'll complete our current rotation," Danny said. "That gives you 3 weeks to send replacements. We'll brief them on everything they need to know. This is unacceptable. I'm filing a complaint with the council." "That's your right," Danny said calmly. "But we're still leaving." Captain Jack Morrison received the message while his ship was returning from a rescue mission. They had just saved a Vaxian transport that had engine problems. Jack's crew of 35 humans had worked for 18 hours straight to get the transport operational and escort it to safety. Jack called a meeting in the ship's common room. His crew gathered around him. They were tired but in good spirits. They always felt good after a successful rescue. "We've received orders from Earth," Jack said. "Protocol Exodus? We're going home." The room went quiet. Then someone asked, "When?" "We'll complete our current patrol route. That's 2 more weeks. Then we head for human space." Nobody argued. They had all felt it, the way the council treated them. They saved lives, and people barely said thank you. They worked harder than anyone, and nobody seemed to care. Going home didn't sound bad at all. All across the galaxy, the same scene played out. Human engineers on remote stations. Human miners in asteroid fields. Human diplomats in minor embassies. Human researchers in science outposts. They all got the message. They all made the same choice. They didn't sabotage anything. They didn't steal anything. They didn't cause problems. They just stopped. They finished their current jobs, documented everything, trained replacements when possible, and left. Some aliens tried to convince them to stay. Some offered more money. Some offered better positions. A few even offered respect and appreciation, though it came too late. The humans were polite but firm. They were going home. Ambassador Paul Henderson attended 3 more council sessions. He said nothing during any of them. The human transport ships moved through space like a quiet river. There were hundreds of them now, all heading in the same direction. Away from council space. Toward home, on Earth, Admiral Claire Bennett stood in the command center, watching the tracking screens. Each dot represented a ship carrying humans back from the galaxy. Some were military vessels. Most were civilian transports, cargo ships, even personal shuttles. Anything that could make the journey. Claire had been the supreme commander of human fleet operations for 8 years. She had sent ships to every corner of council space. Now she was bringing them all home. The message from Paul Henderson had been brief, but she understood it perfectly. They were done. Her assistant, Commander Kyle Rogers, stood beside her. The last refugee convoy from the outer sectors will arrive in 42 days, he said. After that, we'll have everyone. Refugee, Claire repeated. Strange word for it. What else would you call them? They're fleeing. They're not fleeing. They're choosing to leave. There's a difference. Kyle nodded. He understood, but he also knew what it felt like. He had served on Station Kepler 7 5 years ago. He remembered the way the alien staff treated human workers. Not cruel, exactly, just invisible, like furniture that happened to be useful on the planet of New Terra. Humanity's largest colony outside Earth. Governor Lisa Montgomery was organizing housing for the returning workers. New Terra had only 3 million people. They were about to receive 500,000 more. Lisa sat in her office, reviewing resource reports. Food production would need to increase. Housing would be tight for a while. Jobs would need to be created. It was a lot of work, but she didn't hesitate. These were her people coming home. They would make it work. Her chief administrator, a woman named Beth Parker, brought in the latest numbers. We're converting the old industrial sector into temporary housing. It won't be fancy, but it'll be warm and safe. What about work? Lisa asked. That's the interesting part. Most of these people have skills we desperately need. Engineers, doctors, teachers, specialists in 100 fields. We've been borrowing council technology for 50 years. Now we'll have people who actually know how to build it ourselves. Lisa smiled. So we're not taking in refugees. We're welcoming experts. Exactly. The first returning workers arrived on Earth 3 weeks after Paul Henderson's message. The media was there, cameras recording everything. People wanted to know why. Why were humans leaving? What happened? Was there a war? Captain Jack Morrison stepped off his ship and faced the cameras. He was tired. His crew was tired. They had spent the last 2 weeks doing 4 final rescue missions on the way home. Old habits. A reporter pushed a microphone toward him. Captain Morrison, can you tell us why you're leaving council space? Jack thought about it. He could talk about the rejected safety proposals. He could mention the casual dismissal of human lives. He could describe the way counselors looked through him like he wasn't there. But that wasn't really why. We're just tired, he said finally. We've been helping for 50 years. We think it's time someone else took a turn. But the council needs you. The reports say the council has 46 other species. They'll figure it out. He walked past the cameras. His crew followed him. They didn't give any more interviews. Dr. Kate Sullivan arrived a week later. The medical community on Earth wanted to meet her immediately. She was famous in human circles for her techniques, for her success rate, for the innovations she had developed while working in alien hospitals. She met with the Earth Medical Council in a conference room in Geneva. 15 of the planet's top doctors wanted to know everything. What had she learned? What techniques could she share? How could they improve Earth's medical system? Kate connected her datapad to the display screen. "I can show you everything," she said. "But first, I want to tell you something important. The aliens we worked with were not bad at medicine. They were smart, educated, skilled, but they all followed protocols exactly. If the protocol said to do A, then B, then C, they did it. Every time. The same way, and humans don't?" One of the doctors asked. "Humans adapt. If A doesn't work, we try D. If the patient is unusual, we change our approach. If something feels wrong, we trust our instincts. That's what made our success rates higher. Not better knowledge. Better flexibility." She spent 6 hours sharing everything she knew. The doctors took notes, asked questions, and started to understand. Humans didn't succeed in council space because they were smarter. They succeeded because they were different. Lieutenant Danny Wright and his peacekeeping unit arrived on New Terra. They were offered rest, time off, counseling if they needed it. Danny politely declined everything except a place to sleep. "What will you do now?" Governor Lisa Montgomery asked him during a brief meeting. "Train others," Danny said. "There are going to be conflicts in human space, too. Growing pains. We'll need peacekeepers who understand how to de-escalate without violence." "I can teach that. You make it sound simple." "It's not simple, but it's necessary." Lisa assigned him to the New Terra Security Force. Within a month, Danny was teaching his techniques to human officers. They learned how to read body language, how to speak calmly in tense situations, how to find common ground between angry groups. The techniques that had worked on aliens worked just as well on humans. On Earth, scientists gathered at the Mars Research Station to meet with Dr. Stephen Blake. Stephen had spent 15 years studying advanced physics at a council research facility. He had worked alongside some of the galaxy's greatest minds. Now he was home, and he brought everything he learned. The Mars team leader, Dr. Gary Hughes, shook Stephen's hand. "We've been trying to crack faster-than-light communication for decades. The council has it, but they never shared the full details with us." Stephen smiled. "I know how it works. I helped design the latest version." The room went quiet. Then everyone started talking at once. Stephen waited for them to calm down, then started explaining. It took 3 days to cover everything, but when he was done, the Mars team understood. They could build it themselves now. This pattern repeated across human space. Every returning worker brought knowledge, skills, and experience. The council had treated humans as servants, but those servants had learned everything. They had maintained the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Now they could build it themselves. Admiral Claire Bennett met with the Earth government 2 months after the Exodus began. The president, a man named Frank Morris, wanted to understand the full situation. "Are we at war with the council?" Frank asked. "No," Claire said. "We're not fighting anyone. We're just leaving. But what if they try to force us back? What if they send ships?" "They won't. We didn't break any laws. We're not in rebellion. We simply resigned from our jobs and came home. There's nothing they can do about it legally. And militarily?" Claire pulled up a star map. "We have the strongest military in our region now. All those peacekeeping forces, all those rescue ships, all those patrol fleets, they're all back in human space. We've been scattered across the galaxy for 50 years. Now we're concentrated here. Even if someone wanted to attack us, it would be suicide." Frank looked at the map. He saw hundreds of ships, all in human territory. Claire was right. By leaving, humans had actually become stronger. "What about trade?" Frank asked. "We'll continue trading with any species that wants to trade fairly. We're not isolating ourselves. We're just not serving the council anymore." Frank nodded slowly. And if they ask us to come back? That's not my decision, Claire said. But speaking personally, I think we should stay right here. Let them figure out how to run their own society. On the news networks, people debated the exodus endlessly. Some thought humans should go back. Some thought the council would collapse without human help. Some didn't care about the council at all and were just happy to have people coming home. Paul Henderson gave one interview. 3 months after returning to Earth, he sat in a simple studio and answered questions for an hour. Do you regret leaving? The interviewer asked, No, even if the council suffers? Paul was quiet for a moment. I don't want anyone to suffer. But we suffered for 50 years. We died in their accidents, fought in their conflicts, solved their problems, and they called us servants. We gave them everything. They gave us nothing. Not even respect? Some people say this is selfish. Maybe it is. But I'm tired of being selfless. We all are. The interview went viral. Humans across Earth and the colonies watched it. Most agreed with Paul. They had all felt invisible at some point in their lives. They understood why people didn't want to go back to that feeling. On Station Kepler 7, the alien staff struggled without Dr. Kate Sullivan and her team. The hospital still functioned, but patients started dying at higher rates. The protocols worked for common problems, but unusual cases baffled the remaining doctors. They didn't have Kate's flexibility, her instincts, her willingness to try something new. Station Master Quilneth sent messages to Earth. He offered triple salary for any human doctors who would return. He promised better treatment, better respect, better everything. The messages went unanswered. In the contested zones, violence flared up. The replacement peacekeepers tried to use force to stop conflicts. It made things worse. People who were just angry became violent. Small disputes became large. Station Kepler 7 had been the jewel of the outer sectors for 20 years. It served as a trading hub, medical center, and cultural meeting point for dozens of species. Now, 6 months after the humans left, it was falling apart. Station Master Quilneth sat in his office, staring at a red warning light on his console. The main reactor was experiencing fluctuations again. Small ones, nothing dangerous yet. But they were getting worse. He called the engineering department. The chief engineer, a Relian named Curseth, arrived 20 minutes later. His face looked tired. Quilneth knew why. The engineering team had been working triple shifts trying to keep the station operational. The reactor? Quilneth asked. We can't figure it out, Curseth said. The human engineers maintained it for 2 decades. They left us all the technical manuals, all the access codes, everything we should need. But the manuals don't explain what's actually happening. What do you mean? Curseth pulled up a schematic on the display. According to the official documentation, this reactor should require a full system restart every 6 months. But the humans never did that. They ran it continuously. When we asked them how, they said they just balanced the harmonics. That's not in any manual. Can't you just do the restart? We tried. Last week. It took the reactor offline for 16 hours. We almost lost life support in 3 sectors. The restart procedure in the manual doesn't account for all the modifications the humans made over the years. Quilneth felt cold. What modifications? We're not sure. They improved the system constantly, making small changes here and there. They documented the major ones, but not the little things. And the little things are what made it work so well. So what do we do? Curseth looked defeated. We try to keep it stable. And we hope nothing major breaks. In the medical center, the new chief doctor, a Quellan named Serva, was having his own crisis. A patient lay on the operating table, a Torvan trader who had been in an accident. The injury was severe but treatable. Serval had seen Dr. Kate Sullivan handle cases like this dozens of times, but he couldn't replicate her success. He followed every protocol exactly. He did everything by the book. The patient's condition kept deteriorating. After 6 hours of surgery, the patient died. Serval sat in the break room afterward, his hands shaking. This was the 8th patient he had lost in 3 months. Under Dr. Sullivan, the hospital had lost maybe 2 patients in an entire year. What was he doing wrong? A nurse, a human who had trained under Kate but stayed behind because of family, sat down beside him. Her name was Amy, and she had been working with the alien doctors, trying to help them adjust. "You're following the protocols," Amy said gently. "Yes, exactly as written." "That's the problem. Dr. Sullivan never followed protocols exactly. She used them as guidelines, but she always adapted based on what the patient needed. Each case was different, but that's not scientific. Medicine should be consistent. It is consistent. The goal is always to save the patient. How you get there can change." Serval looked at his hands. "I don't know how to do that. I was trained to follow procedures." "How did Dr. Sullivan learn to improvise?" Amy shrugged. She said it was just a human thing. We see patterns, we adapt, we try new things. I don't think she could explain it if she tried. In the contested zones between Vaxion and Quellan territory, the situation had gone from tense to explosive. Chief Peacekeeper Tormek, a massive Torvan with a reputation for strength, stood in the command center and watched his sector fall apart. 3 riots this week. 2 border skirmishes. A civilian massacre yesterday that killed 40 people. And it was only getting worse. Tormek had been confident when the human peacekeepers left. His team was strong, well-trained, and experienced. They knew how to use force when needed. But that was the problem. They only knew force. Lieutenant Danny Wright and his team had handled situations without firing a shot. They talked to people. They listened. They found solutions that made everyone walk away feeling heard. Tormek's team just enforced rules. It turned out there was a big difference. A call came in. Another dispute, this time between 2 merchant families arguing over a trade route. Tormek sent a squad to handle it. They would arrive, lay down the law, and threaten punishment if anyone caused trouble. It worked sometimes. Other times it turned into a fight, Tormek wished. Not for the first time that he had paid more attention to how Danny worked. He had thought the human was just lucky, that his peaceful solutions were accidents. Now he understood. Danny had been skilled. Very skilled. And nobody had bothered to learn from him. The rescue services were collapsing even faster. A distress call came in from a Quellan mining ship near the Kethris Belt, engine failure, life support failing, 6 crew members aboard. The nearest rescue ship was 14 hours away. When Captain Jack Morrison's fleet had been active, they would have been there in 5 hours. Maybe 6. They always got there faster than anyone else, even when it seemed impossible. Other species had assumed the humans were just closer or had better ships. But that wasn't it. Human rescue crews took risks. They cut corners safely, pushed their engines harder, navigated through dangerous spaces that other species avoided. They did whatever it took to arrive in time. Other species followed safety protocols. By the time the rescue ship arrived at the Quellan mining ship, all 6 crew members were dead. The Quellan government lodged an official complaint with the council. The response time was unacceptable. Where was the rescue fleet that used to serve this sector? The council had no answer. The rescue fleet had been human. It was gone. Trade routes started failing. This was unexpected, and it caught everyone by surprise. The major trade routes still functioned fine, but dozens of minor routes, the ones that connected smaller colonies and trading posts, started to collapse. A Vaxian trade minister named Kelvorn investigated why. What he found shocked him. Humans had been running most of the minor trade routes. They made them work even when they weren't profitable. They found creative solutions to logistical problems. They negotiated with pirates instead of fighting them. They knew which officials to bribe and which to befriend. Other species could run profitable trade routes. But humans could make any route work, no matter how difficult. Now those routes were empty. Small colonies that depended on them began to suffer. Food shipments stopped. Medical supplies ran low. Some colonies started talking about evacuation. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions every week now. The problems were piling up faster than they could address them. Each counselor brought reports from their homeworlds about systems breaking down, infrastructure failing, Conflicts escalating. Counselor Vexter, the Zentrini who had dismissed Paul Henderson's safety proposal, stood before the council with his own report. The Zentrini Confederacy has experienced a 40% increase in industrial accidents since the humans left. Our factories are less efficient, our ships are breaking down more often, and our repair costs have doubled. Another counselor, a Quellan named Drenver, added his report. We've lost 12 ships in the past 2 months to mechanical failures. Under human maintenance, we lost maybe 2 ships per year. A Relian counselor spoke next. Our medical facilities are reporting a 25% increase in patient mortality. We're trying to recruit doctors from other species, but none of them can match the success rates we had with human medical staff. The reports continued. Each species had the same story. Things were falling apart. Not catastrophically, not all at once, but steadily, consistently, things were getting worse. Supreme Counselor Aethrex, the leader of the council, listened to all the reports. He was a Torvan, one of the oldest species in the council, and he had seen many crises. But this one was different. This wasn't an enemy attacking them. This wasn't a natural disaster. This was just the absence of humans. We need to bring them back, Vexter said. Whatever it takes. Offer them better pay, better positions, seats on the council itself if necessary. Have we tried contacting them? Another counselor asked. Yes, multiple times. They respond politely but decline all offers. They say they're focusing on their own territory now. Then we need to send a diplomatic mission. Show them how much we value them. Aethrex shook his head. I don't think they're negotiating. I think they've made their decision. That's ridiculous. Everyone negotiates. What do they want? I don't think they want anything from us. I think they just want to be left alone. The council chamber fell silent. The idea that humans didn't want something was foreign to them. Every species wanted something. Territory, resources, power, influence. What species would just walk away without demands? On Station Kepler 7, the reactor fluctuations got worse. Kursith and his team worked around the clock trying to stabilize it. They managed to keep it running, but barely. Parts of the station started experiencing power outages. Life support became unreliable in some sectors. Quilnith made the difficult decision to evacuate non-essential personnel. The station's population dropped from 50,000 to 30,000. Businesses closed. The trading hub that had been so successful became a ghost town. Quilnith sent another message to Earth, to Dr. Kate Sullivan specifically. He offered her complete control of the medical center, unlimited budget, a permanent seat on the station's governing council. Station Kepler 7 was officially abandoned 1 year after the humans left. The reactor finally failed completely, and the engineering team couldn't repair it. 30,000 inhabitants evacuated in emergency shuttles. The jewel of the outer sectors became a dead hulk floating in space, a monument to what had been lost. Quilnith was among the last to leave. He stood on the bridge, looking at the dark corridors through the viewscreen. He had managed this station for 15 years. He had been proud of it. Now it was just another failure. Before he left, he walked through the medical center one final time. The equipment was still there, state-of-the-art technology, but it was useless without people who knew how to use it properly. He thought about Dr. Kate Sullivan, about the countless lives she had saved in this very building. He had barely spoken to her in all those years. He regretted that now. The Vaxian-Quellan War had been raging for 8 months. 20,000 dead. Hundreds of ships destroyed. Entire colonies burned. The council sent mediators, experienced diplomats from a dozen species. None of them could stop the fighting. The problem was simple. Both sides were too angry to listen to reason, and the mediators didn't know how to make them calm down first. They tried logical arguments, treaty proposals, economic incentives. Nothing worked. Anger didn't respond to logic. Lieutenant Danny Wright had understood that. He would have sat with both sides, not as a judge, but as a listener. He would have let them vent their anger, acknowledge their pain, and slowly, carefully, help them see each other as people instead of enemies. It took time and patience and a special kind of empathy. The Council's mediators had experience, but they didn't have Danny's gift. Supreme Counselor Aethrex called an emergency summit. Every species leader was required to attend. They met on the Council homeworld in the grand chamber built for occasions like this. The room could hold thousands. Today it held the fate of the galaxy. Aethrex stood at the central podium. He looked old suddenly, even though his species aged slowly. The weight of the past year showed on his face. "We face a crisis unlike any in our history," he began. "Not an invasion, not a plague, not a natural disaster. We face the consequences of our own choices. We took humans for granted. We dismissed their contributions. We treated them as servants rather than equals. And now we're paying the price." Counselor Vexler stood. "With respect, Supreme Counselor, perhaps the price is too high? We must find a way to convince the humans to return." "We've tried," Aethrex said tiredly. "We've offered them money, power, and respect. They've refused everything. Then we're not offering enough." A new voice spoke up. It was Ambassador Zilanara, a Quellan who had always advocated for better treatment of humans. She had been ignored for years. Now people were finally listening to her. "They're not negotiating," Zilanara said. "They don't want anything from us. They just want to be somewhere they're valued. And they found that place, home. So what do you suggest?" Vexler asked, his tone sharp. "I suggest we accept reality. The humans are gone. We need to learn to function without them." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some agreed with Zilanara. Most refused to accept it. They had built their society with human help for 50 years. They didn't know how to function without it. Trade Minister Kelvorn stood and presented his economic report. The numbers were worse than anyone expected. The Council economy had contracted by 40%. Trade routes were collapsing. Unemployment was at 23%. Multiple species were facing food shortages. 2 smaller species had already left the Council entirely, choosing to fend for themselves rather than share the burden of the crisis. "How did we not see this coming?" someone asked. Kelvorn pulled up a chart. "Because humans were everywhere, doing everything. Look at this. In the past decade, humans mediated 89 disputes. We thought our diplomats handled them. We were wrong. Humans maintained 73% of outer sector infrastructure. We thought our engineers did it. Wrong again. Humans ran 62% of rescue operations, 48% of peacekeeping missions, and 39% of medical facilities. The numbers kept coming. Each one was a shock. Nobody had realized how much humans did because they did it quietly, without fanfare, without demanding recognition. They were everywhere, Kelvorn said. In every system, every station, every colony. And we never noticed them. Not until they left. Aurelian Counselor stood. "My people are facing a medical crisis. Our hospitals can't handle the patient load without human doctors. We're experiencing a mortality rate we haven't seen in a century. Can we not offer them something they want? Anything?" Aethrex shook his head. "I've studied the humans extensively this past year. They're not like us. They don't want power or territory. They wanted respect. We didn't give it to them. Now they're building their own society, one where their contributions are valued. Why would they leave that to come back here?" The chamber fell silent. The truth was harsh but undeniable. Counselor Vexler spoke again, and for the first time his voice wasn't arrogant. It was desperate. "I made a mistake. When Ambassador Henderson asked for safety equipment, I dismissed him. I called his workers servants. I was wrong. Is there no way to apologize? To make amends?" Zilanara looked at him. "You can apologize, but that won't bring them back. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed with words." In human space, life was actually improving. The returning workers had brought knowledge and skills that humanity desperately needed. Earth's technology level had jumped forward by decades in a single year. New Terra's economy was booming. The Mars colonies were expanding faster than anyone expected. Governor Lisa Montgomery, stood at a ceremony celebrating the completion of New Terra's first indigenous shipyard. They could build their own ships now, advanced ones, using designs that human engineers had learned while working in council space. The shipyard manager, a former council station engineer named Greg Holland, gave a speech. For 50 years, we fixed their ships. We improved their designs. We learned everything about how they worked. Now we can build our own, better than anything the council has. The crowd cheered. These weren't bitter people celebrating revenge. They were proud people celebrating independence. That was the difference. Dr. Kate Sullivan was teaching at a new medical school on Earth. She had 500 students, all eager to learn her techniques. She showed them how to read patients beyond the instruments, how to adapt protocols to individual needs, how to trust their instincts while staying scientific, one student asked. Dr. Sullivan, do you think the council will figure out how to do medicine without us? Kate thought about Serval, the Quellan doctor who had tried so hard to fill her role. Eventually, maybe, but it'll take them time. They have to unlearn everything they think they know about rigid protocols. They have to learn that medicine is as much art as science. Some species might get there. Others might not. Do you feel bad for them? I feel bad for the patients, Kate said honestly. The doctors are doing their best, but their best isn't enough and people are dying because of it. That's not their fault. It's the system's fault. The council created a system where humans did all the difficult, creative work and other species just followed rules. Now the humans are gone and the rule followers don't know what to do. Lieutenant Danny Wright was running training exercises with New Terra's security force. He had 200 students now, all learning peacekeeping techniques. He taught them patience, empathy, and de-escalation. One of his students, a young woman named Carla Mills, asked him about the war between Vaxian and Quellan forces. Could you stop it if you went back? Danny thought about it. Maybe, probably, but I'm not going back. Even to save lives? I saved lives for 20 years. I stopped conflicts that would have killed thousands. Did the council notice? Did they appreciate it? Did they learn from it? He shook his head. They thought I was just lucky. They never tried to understand what I was doing or why it worked. So no, I'm not going back. They need to learn to solve their own problems. On Earth, Paul Henderson had retired from diplomatic service. He spent his days writing a history of humanity's 50 years in council space. He interviewed returning workers, collected their stories, and documented what had really happened. One day he received a message from Ambassador Zilinara. She asked permission to visit Earth. Paul discussed it with Admiral Claire Bennett and President Frank Morris. They decided to allow it. Zilinara arrived 2 weeks later. She came alone, without guards or assistants. Paul met her at the spaceport in Geneva. She looked older than he remembered, worn down by the past year. They sat in a quiet cafe. Zilinara ordered tea, a human custom she had learned years ago. Paul waited for her to speak. The council is collapsing, she said finally. 5 species have left already. More are considering it. The economy is in ruins. Wars are breaking out everywhere. Infrastructure is failing, and nobody knows how to fix it. I'm sorry to hear that, Paul said, and he meant it. Are you? Even after everything? I'm not cruel, Ambassador. I don't want people to suffer, but I'm also not surprised. The council was built on the backs of human labor. When we left, the foundation crumbled. Zilinara nodded. I understand. I've come to ask you something, though I already know the answer. Is there anything at all that would... 2 years after Protocol Exodus, the Galactic Council met in emergency session for the 43rd time. The Grand Chamber that once held representatives from 47 species now held only 39. 8 species had left, unable to survive the economic collapse and constant conflicts. More were considering departure. Supreme Counselor Aethrex looked around the half-empty chamber. He remembered when this room was full, when the Council represented the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Now it represented failure. The Vaxian-Quellan War had finally ended, not through diplomacy but through exhaustion. Both species had bled themselves dry. 50,000 dead, entire fleets destroyed, colonies abandoned. The peace treaty was signed in silence, with neither side claiming victory. There was nothing to celebrate. Counselor Vexler stood to give his report. He looked like a different person than he had 2 years ago. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like shame. The Zentrini Confederacy has lost 38% of our industrial capacity. Our infrastructure continues to deteriorate. We've tried to hire engineers from other species, but nobody has the expertise that humans possessed. We're regressing technologically. Within 5 years, we estimate we'll be back to where we were 50 years ago, before humans joined the Council. The report was devastating, but not unique. Every species had a similar story. The Council had built itself on human labor, human innovation, human problem-solving. Without humans, it was all falling apart. Admiral Kresh, the military commander, stood next. Our peacekeeping forces have failed to prevent 17 separate conflicts in the past year. Casualties are in the tens of thousands. Our current approach is not working. We use force, which escalates tensions. We don't have anyone who can de-escalate conflicts the way human peacekeepers did. Trade Minister Kelvorn provided the economic update. Trade volume has decreased by 60%. The minor trade routes remain closed. Even major routes are operating at reduced capacity. Unemployment across Council space averages 34%. Multiple species are experiencing food shortages. The economic situation is critical and worsening. Medical Director Serval gave the health report. He had transferred from Station Kepler 7 before it was abandoned. Medical mortality rates have increased by 43% across Council space. We've tried to implement the techniques that human doctors used, but we lack their flexibility and intuition. We follow protocols, but protocols can't cover every situation. Patients are dying from treatable conditions. Report after report painted the same picture. The Council was dying. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily and inevitably. Like a body that had lost a vital organ and was slowly shutting down, Ambassador Zelenara stood. She had been warning the Council about this for years, but nobody had listened. Now she had their attention, though it came too late. We need to accept reality, she said. The humans are not coming back. We've offered them everything we can think of. Better pay, Council seats, complete autonomy, formal apologies. They've politely declined everything. They're building their own civilization now, and from all reports, they're succeeding. Then what do you suggest? Athrex asked. We adapt. We learn to function without them. We study how they solve problems and try to replicate their methods. We become self-sufficient again. It won't be easy, and it won't be fast, but it's our only option. Counselor Vexler shook his head. How can we replicate what they did when we don't understand how they did it? They didn't just work hard. They worked differently. They saw problems we didn't see and solutions we couldn't imagine. Then we learn to see differently, Zelenara said. Or we fail. Those are our choices. The Council voted to create study groups focused on learning human methodologies. Engineers would study human problem-solving approaches. Doctors would analyze human medical techniques. Diplomats would examine human conflict resolution strategies. It was a desperate move, trying to reverse engineer 50 years of human innovation from incomplete records and fading memories on Earth. The anniversary of Protocol Exodus was marked with quiet ceremonies. There were no celebrations, no triumphant speeches, just moments of silence for those who had died in Council service and gratitude for those who had come home. Captain Jack Morrison attended a ceremony at the Naval Memorial. His rescue fleet had been integrated into Earth's emergency services. They saved lives now in human space, responding to accidents and disasters with the same speed and skill they had shown in Council territory. A reporter approached him after the ceremony. Captain Morrison, do you have any regrets about leaving Council space? Jack thought about all the lives his team had saved over the years. Thousands of people from dozens of species. He thought about the Quellen mining crew that had died because the replacement rescue team arrived too late. That haunted him sometimes. I regret that people are dying who might have lived if we were still there, he said honestly. But I don't regret leaving. We gave 50 years of service. We gave our best effort. If that wasn't enough to earn respect, then nothing would have been. At some point, you have to stop trying to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it. Dr. Kate Sullivan was now the director of Earth's largest medical training facility. She had trained 5,000 doctors in 2 years, spreading her techniques and philosophy throughout human medical practice. The success rates in human hospitals had increased by 15%. Even as council hospitals struggled, a medical journal asked her to write an article about her time in council space. She declined. She didn't want to dwell on the past. She was focused on the future, on building a medical system that valued both science and intuition, both protocol and adaptation. One of her students, a young doctor named Pete Sanders, asked her during a lecture, "Dr. Sullivan, do you think the council doctors will ever match your success rates?" "If they learn to be flexible, yes," Kate said. "The council species aren't stupid. They're well-educated and skilled. But they were trained in systems that value rigidity and consistency. They need to unlearn that before they can move forward. Some will. Some won't. That's not my problem anymore." Lieutenant Danny Wright had built a successful peacekeeping academy on New Terra. His students were now working throughout human space, preventing conflicts before they escalated. The success rate was remarkable. Most disputes were resolved without violence, without arrest, without anyone getting hurt. One day, he received an unexpected visitor. A young Torvin named Kreshva, the son of Admiral Kresh, had traveled to human space without permission. He wanted to learn from Danny. Danny met him in his office. "Your father knows you're here?" "No," Kreshva admitted. "He would forbid it. But I watched videos of you working. I studied your techniques. I need to learn how you do it. My people are dying in conflicts we can't stop." Danny studied the young Torvin. He saw genuine desire to learn, not arrogance or entitlement. He made a decision. "I'll teach you, but you need to understand something. What I do isn't about techniques or tactics. It's about seeing people as people, not problems to solve. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Then sit down. We have a lot to cover." Governor Lisa Montgomery stood at the grand opening of New Terra's first university. The building was massive, designed to hold 10,000 students. They already had applications from 15,000. The university would teach everything from engineering to medicine to diplomacy, all based on what humans had learned during their 50 years in council space. Lisa gave a speech to the assembled crowd. 50 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Council with hope and enthusiasm. We wanted to contribute, to learn, to be part of something greater. We succeeded beyond measure. But we were never truly welcomed. We were useful but not valued. So we came home. And here, in our own space, we've built something remarkable. We've taken everything we learned and made it our own. We've created a society where contributions matter, where people are valued, where hard work is respected. This university represents our future. A future we control. A future we build ourselves. The crowd cheered. These were the children and grandchildren of those who had served in council space. They had grown up hearing stories of their parents' and grandparents' work, of the things they had built and fixed and solved. They were proud of that heritage. But they were also proud to be building something new. Paul Henderson finished his book about humanity's time in council space. It was titled The Price of Being Invisible. The book documented everything: 50 years of service, countless lives saved, infrastructure maintained, problems solved, and the constant lack of recognition or respect that eventually drove humans away. The book became required reading in human schools. Not as a story of bitterness, but as a lesson about knowing your worth, about walking away from situations where you're not valued, about the importance of respect and recognition, about building something better instead of trying to fix something broken. One chapter detailed the council's collapse after humanity left. Paul didn't write it with satisfaction or revenge. He wrote it as a warning. This is what happens when a society takes people for granted. This is the price of arrogance. Back in council space, the study groups were making slow progress. Some engineers were beginning to understand how humans approach problems differently. Some doctors were learning to adapt protocols instead of fall.